Hey guys, it's Tim, and welcome to a new series known as The Countdown. In this series, I'm going to take a topic and then give various reasons as to why that topic is good or bad depending on what the subject matter is at the time. This isn't necessarily a top 10 list or a top 5 list. These are in no particular order, they're just various points to support my idea. With that said, let's get into our first topic here, which is 5 reasons why Krillin is one of the best Dragon Ball characters. As Dragon Ball Z proceeded forward and more of the characters from the original Dragon Ball became less and less important, the fan bases tended to shift away from Krillin and give him the shaft a lot of the time because he wasn't one of the strongest fighters in the front lines. At least comparatively speaking to, say, Goku, Vegeta, or Piccolo. But I've always loved the character, and for a long time he's been my favorite Dragon Ball character. And here are 5 reasons why I feel that he's underappreciated, even if he's not the least underappreciated. The first reason being that Krillin is really one of the more engaging, entertaining, and even more relatable characters compared to a lot of his contemporaries. While a lot of characters, especially Tien or Master Roshi, tended to be portrayed as fairly one-note as time went on, with Tien only being focused on training and Master Roshi over time only being focused on being a pervert. And even Yamcha, who had some interesting things when he was introduced, kind of devolved into his own special level of blandness after the Saiyan saga. Krillin tended to keep and even evolve his personality over time, which kept him a lot more interesting than a lot of other characters. Even main ones like Goku or Gohan, who really didn't have the same force of personality that Krillin did. Krillin always had a very snide, sarcastic wit to him, and he was a lot more self-aware and aware of the world around him than Goku was. It was a good way to have them counterbalance off of each other in the early days. Plus, even in his early days, Krillin lacked the self-confidence that Goku had, which is really why he was such a jerk to him starting off, because he viewed Goku as dumb, which isn't exactly unfair, and also thought that Goku abused this great strength that he had and didn't realize what he had going for him, especially since we know that early on Krillin was bullied by the other students of the Orphan Temple due to his size and apparent lack of power. But over time, as we get to know Krillin, he evolves from the conniving jerk he was in the early days to being a lot more of a likable character and a lot more selfless one, but still keeping his knowledge of his own limits, which is what keeps him in the game for so long. I really just find Krillin to be one of the most routinely likable and engaging characters on the show, especially in a series that has a lot of characters that are really only defined for one thing. But back to my previous note of Krillin knowing his own limits, one of my other points for why Krillin is one of the best characters is that he's one of the most technically competent fighters on the show. Now keep in mind, I didn't say one of the strongest. There's still a large margin of gap between his strength and the strength of the stronger members of the team. I'm just saying that Krillin knows how to use what he has probably one of the most effectively of the characters on the show. Unlike pretty much every other character on the show, Krillin never really attempted to overpower his opponents. Now, a large reason for this is because, especially as time went on, Krillin couldn't overpower their opponents anymore. But even from the early days, Krillin was a lot more pragmatic in his fighting style compared to everyone else and was willing to exploit the weaknesses of his enemies when he didn't think he'd be able to defeat them otherwise. But even beyond pragmatism, Krillin was always good at learning new techniques and growing and expanding what he already knew. Maybe not as good as Goku, who was basically a sponge who just absorbed other people's techniques, but he was still very good at it. Keep in mind that, like Goku, Krillin had never attempted to do the Kamehameha before he first performed it. He just assumed he'd be able to do it because he saw that Yamcha had learned it. Also, Krillin learned how to fly completely on his own. Unlike Goku, who learned how to do it from Kami, or Tien, who learned how to do it from the Crane School, Krillin just saw it was a possibility, and over the gap between the 22nd and 23rd World Tournament, figured out how to do it on his own. And then of course there's the Destructo Disc, or the Kienzan, which Krillin adapted and created all on his own, which is one of the most powerful techniques in the show. If he's able to get it off. A lot of the time he's not allowed to, because it basically would have broken the story up until he fought Cell. Contrary to what people think, especially since over time Krillin was usually used as a comedic foil to the more serious moments, Krillin is a very competent fighter, and has been since he was 13 years old, when he was able to take out much older, experienced martial artists, usually in only a few blows. He may have never been the strongest, even from the time he was first introduced, but he was always really good at using what he had to his advantage. Which leads me directly into my next point. Do you remember in Broly the Second Coming when Krillin showed up briefly and said the line, "None of you guys would have lasted a season without me"? He was right. While it was never great for his health, Krillin's main role in Dragon Ball Z for pretty much most of its runtime up until the Cell Saga was pretty much keeping everyone else alive. Especially since, while pretty much everyone else was stronger than him at the point where he was on Namek, pretty much everyone else also fell into the category of too stupid to live. Or in Gohan's case, where he was 5. Now, for most of the fighters who died in the Saiyan Saga, there wasn't a huge amount Krillin could have done to save them, especially since Chaozu and Tien killed themselves, and Piccolo jumped in front of an attack meant for Gohan. But outside of that, let's take a look at things that Krillin did throughout the Saiyan and Namek saga to keep everyone alive. Between the time that Piccolo died and Goku arrived, Krillin kept Gohan alive, getting off a few good shots at Nappa and almost killing him if Vegeta hadn't warned him to get out of the way. He, along with Gohan and Yajirobe, saved Goku from Grade 8 Vegeta. Krillin is the first one in the series to form what is viewed as the Spirit Bomb with the blue orb. Goku had only really shot it as white energy before that point. He, along with Bulma and Gohan, head off to Namek in order to get the Dragon Balls to wish everyone back, and Krillin basically becomes the hero of the series at this point up until Goku arrives on Namek, because Vegeta's really more so an anti-villain while he's there. He saves Gohan from Dodoria, manages to keep a Dragon Ball from Vegeta for a while, and is even able to broker a deal with Vegeta to get him on their side for that time, though Vegeta does admittedly help with that due to his knowledge of the situation. He helped hold off Ginyu Goku. It was his idea to take the Dragon Balls out from under Vegeta's nose, which helped them get the wish to get Piccolo to Namek to help against Frieza later. He distracted Frieza from Gohan so that Gohan could be healed from Dende, and he, though reluctantly, helped Vegeta power up, which helped buy even more time for Goku to get back into the fight. He may not be strong enough in order to get any decisive victories in these battles, but he definitely keeps the people alive who otherwise could. And speaking of helping people stay in the fight, my next point is this. A lot of Krillin's actions, or at least his presence in the story, causes a lot of the major shifts and story changes over time. Most notably here being his 2 deaths, which, while it is mockable that he died 2 times throughout the course of the series, even more times if we count alternate timelines and GT, his deaths actually had pretty large impacts on the series as a whole. His death was the first major character death of Dragon Ball, and it helped shift the series from the goofy adventures of Goku to being much more serious in the King Piccolo saga. It was the first time we really saw Goku get legitimately mad about something. And then of course his second death in the Frieza saga is what triggered the very first transformation into Super Saiyan. And the last and probably most major impact that Krillin has had on the story leads into my 5th and final point. Krillin may have in fact saved Dragon Ball. Here's the thing. Dragon Ball's first arc, known widely as the Pilaf Saga, really wasn't wildly popular in Japan. It did okay and was enough for it to finish its entire story run, but it really wasn't breaking any sales records. Likely had major changes not been done in its next arc, Dragon Ball would have only been the Pilaf Saga, the first 13 episodes of the anime, and Akira Toriyama would have gone down as being a one-hit wonder with Dr. Slump. At least in Japan. But after gauging fan reaction, Akira Toriyama's then editor went to him and told him that people really enjoyed the fighting aspects of the series. So Akira Toriyama decided that the next arc was going to focus around a World Martial Arts tournament. He would bring back Master Roshi to be Goku's mentor leading up to the tournament, but he would also introduce another character, a character to be even more so Goku's rival than Yamcha had been beforehand, and that rival was Krillin. This was the first time that Goku had someone around his age and size who was also a strong fighter, but was radically different from him personality-wise. And that formula carries over even today, as Vegeta now holds that role with him. After this point, Dragon Ball did actually become much more popular in its home country, and as we all know, eventually the fighting focus that was popular with people back then became the main draw of the series as it went on. Now, while it's difficult to say that Krillin's presence alone is what caused this boon in sales, you can't really deny that the type of rival that he was compared to the type of rival Yamcha was really had more of an impact on the series as a whole, and the fact that Krillin was the one who ended up moving forward more so than any other human really shows that he must have had some larger impact on the series than the others had. And there we have it, guys. 5 reasons why Krillin is one of the best Dragon Ball characters. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope that you guys can at least see where I'm coming from with Krillin, even if you don't fully agree with it. But, as always, let us know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments, and until next time, this has been Tim from the Hybrid Network, signing out.